Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Stock Market Today. It's Alexis Garcia and Ed Carson here to break down the market action in today's session for Tuesday, November 28th. And Ed, some more sideways action today, but index is holding near highs. And since I have you on, I have to sneak in a Star Wars reference because these aren't the droids you're looking for, but maybe this is the market pause we've been looking for.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, in some ways, I wish we'd have a little bit of a pullback, but we'll get into that. I want to take a look at a couple of stocks that didn't pause today, Tesla and Palantir, as well as one that is pulling back, Marriott.
All right, well, we will definitely discuss those names, but let's first check on in with the major indexes. The NASDAQ finishing the day up about 0.3%, the S&P 500 up 0.1%, the Dow Jones up 0.2%, and small caps down today about 0.4%. So Ed, let's dive on in and take a closer look at the NASDAQ. As we said, maybe plateauing here a bit and starting to flirt with that 10-day moving average.
Yeah, it's pausing here where what you would expect. I mean, there were some signs that maybe we're overbought and we're due for a pullback. Treasury yields keep falling, so it keeps on pushing it up. It's sort of like even if the market wants to take a break and is feeling a little tired, it's sort of like there's somebody pushing you from behind. Keep going, keep going. This is where you'd expect it. We're right at the 52-week highs basically here. It'd be nice if we had more of a pullback, so then we'd have more handles for them. There's a lot of stocks with these sideways action, which isn't the worst, but it'd seem nice to get more of a shakeout after such a big run. But hey, you can't be too upset. Market is holding up, just holding near highs. Seemingly does not want to go down. A lot of positives in this market.
And I'm just curious because we had David Ryan on IBD Live this morning talking about raising some cash. So how should investors be thinking about possibly trimming some winners as things hopefully take a little bit of a break?
Yeah, I mean, Leaderboard took some partial profits they've been doing the last couple of days. It is interesting. You could, I mean, with the market going sideways, you probably don't want to be doing a whole lot. So it's more like things at the edge. Do you want to add a little bit more? Do you want to take some proactive profits just to make sure you're there? Or do you make some ads and sell some things to sort of keep it all neutral, or you do nothing at all? And I don't think there's a whole lot of, I mean, it really does come down to the exposure you have, the stocks, how they're acting. I mean, are they really extended or are they lagging? You might want to be cutting them. And also just your investing strategy. If you have more like, I want to go for home runs, or I want to make sure I get on base. I want to get those singles and doubles, and those strategies can work in different ways. So I didn't really take a lot of action today. But I think there were opportunities to add. There was opportunities to take profits. Don't have a lot of that. Don't have a definitive answer. It really comes down to the individual.
All right, well, let's take a look then at the S&P 500. Kind of the same story here, a little bit of sideways action, that 10-day line catching up.
Yeah, and pretty close to those highs. And like the NASDAQ, they're all sort of above these early September, or in the Dow's case, the late August highs. So they're sort of finding that as sort of a floor with the 10-day line, with also then the new highs there. So again, place for it to pause.
All right, Ed, well, let's get your thoughts then on the Dow.
The Dow not doing a whole lot either. They actually, a little bit more of a gain. So that's been coming up. That's not pausing. So, but some oil stocks are in there doing well. And again, everything's coming up, at least on the major indexes.
All right, let's take a quick look then at IWM. That's the iShares Russell's 2000 ETF. And we've kind of seen it just, again, moving sideways here underneath the 200-day line.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to see this moving up. There were, just to put it in perspective, there were some nice gains a couple of weeks ago. It hit resistance at the 200-day line, and it's just been pausing there. So it's not terrible. Maybe it's just taking a break, just like the major indexes. But you really would like to see this move higher. It's like we know that there's certain. It doesn't seem to be leading, but you'd like to not to be lagging a little bit less in terms of overall, because this has had a really long slide over the past couple of years.
All right, well, let's take a quick look then at the 10-year Treasury yield. As you said, continuing to slide and perhaps giving this market a little bit of a tailwind here.
Yeah, I mean, a tailwind is obviously a big reason why the market has rallied is because of, because of the 10-year treasury yield coming down quite a bit. When it started to actually come down decisively, that's when the indexes started to bottom and move higher. It was interesting. There were some Fed officials, including some that have been pretty hawkish, and are really sounding confident about, yeah, inflation seems to be coming down. And I mean, the Fed had already, and so there's, the 2-year yield really came down sharply today. So while the 10-year came down, the 2-year yield, which is more closely tied to Fed policy, that tumbled to the lowest in 4 months. And Fed, markets that are pricing in no chance of a rate hike, and that's sort of already been happening, but increasingly expecting rate cuts as soon as May, maybe even earlier. So I think those are things driving these 10-year yield down.
All right, well, let's take a look at some sectors, starting with the Spider Gold shares. That's ticker GLD. And a nice gain here today, up about 1.3%, closing near highs. Got some good volume behind it. What does this say about the market?
I mean, some of the same reasons that are lifting growth stocks are lifting gold. I mean, treasury yields have come down because it's sort of like if you're holding gold, you hold gold, it's not earning anything. And the dollar, with a strong dollar and with treasury yields earning 5%, it's like that people were, buying the dollar instead, or buying T-bills. So that is not quite as pressing now. I mean, that gap is narrowed. That's doing well. The dollar, with treasury yields coming down, the dollar's come down sharply. So gold, it looks relatively more attractive after a big run for the dollar. And as long as that trend, as long as the dollar is falling and treasury yields are falling, gold is likely to do pretty well.
All right, well, let's take a look at USO. That's the US oil fund. And up today, about 1.8%, rebounding off of that 200-day line.
Starting to see a little bit trying to effort to see the 10 of crude oil bottoming. I will note that OPEC Plus, which delayed a meeting by a few days, is going to meet on Thursday. It'll be interesting to see if they do announce new production cuts. There have been expectations of that, and then when the meeting was delayed, is so like that actually triggered some really big losses, came off those lows. So maybe oil is trying to bottom, but we'll see. I think that's going to be an important meeting because we really don't know what's going to come out there.
All right, let's take a look at IGV. That's the tech software ETF. Again, nice gain today, up about 0.6%, closing near highs. And, we had some earnings rolling in this week, but, looking pretty good here after breaking out.
Yeah, and there's a lot more earnings tonight and then tomorrow. So there's a lot of in there. But yeah, this has been doing really well. I mean, it's been a steady climb. Microsoft is one of the biggest names. Adobe's been doing really well. It's a big name. Salesforce, they report tomorrow. That's coming up, and a lot of not a lot of big cap names that aren't giants are doing really well. Probably just sort of this has sort of been the broadest area, I'd say, of the tech sector that's just really doing well.
All right, let's take a look at semis, looking at the VanEck Semiconductor ETF, and kind of not a little bit round tripping here after a breakout and closing right at that buy point.
Yeah, Nvidia is the largest holding in here, and this is pulled back right to its buy point as well, essentially. So there's that, and some of the other chip makers are coming down. So, and that's fine. This is actually taking a pause. I mean, that's not the worst thing. It's actually this is a pretty modest pullback. So, you want to see it find support at some point, but so far this has been pretty constructive.
All right, well, let's jump on in. You mentioned Tesla. I think that's a name maybe some of our investors have heard of.
Some like a little startup.
A little startup. Had a nice gain today, up 4.5%, closing near highs, and really powerfully coming above that 50-day line. And we've got a Cybertruck event coming up, and I think everyone wants to know, when is yours coming?
Yeah, when is mine coming? It might be a little delayed. I may not have been the first one on that reservation list, but yeah, this was a really powerful move. I mean, it's decisively above the 50-day line in a way that it wasn't before. It's trying to it's actually just cleared the short-term high. And I could imagine in a different situation that could be an aggressive entry, but it feels like with the Tesla Cybertruck event coming in on Thursday and this trend line, which is just above here, that seems to be a little safer. So ideally, Tesla has a positive Cybertruck reaction and then moves through this trend line. And that could provide an early entry. We'll see how that goes. I mean, this was strong volume today. There was other news out today, some positive China EV sales. So that's providing momentum there. So there's been volume in this uptrend recently. So that's been nice because some of the moves we've seen in some stocks, they move up the right side of their base and it's not that much volume. That's not the case here. Has a lot of work to do on the relative strength line, but it is improving. So this was one of the big winners today in the market for sure.
All right, well, let's take a look at Palantir Technologies, ticker PLTR. Again, that having a good day, up about 3.4%. Again, closing near those highs as, it kind of drifted back below the buy point, but maybe it looks like it has the spirit of a handle.
It has sort of a high handle. I mean, it's sort of messy. I mean, part of the issue is this was breaking out in these moves. Like there's a lot of strong volume here. And so a lot to like, but it's been pretty extended too from a lot of moving averages. So that makes it a little difficult, but a lot of power. It was a really disappointing reversal here. I'm still not exactly sure why it was so negative that day. And it's kept coming down, but it's found support at the 21-day line. David Ryan was suggesting that actually, if you were interested in buying, this might be a place to go into it today. I don't think he was necessarily advocating, but if you were looking to get into it, buy it here rather than trying at the buy point because it would already be getting a fair amount off the 21-day line, which is one place where you can enter, and that maybe using the low from yesterday as a place to exit. So if it doesn't work, you get out without taking a big loss. The numbers look pretty good, especially on the earnings front. That's picking up quite nicely. So this is one of the AI darlings trying to make a move. This can make big moves on the upside, but it can make it big moves on the downside. So you definitely, with big high names like this, you definitely want to know your exit strategy too.
All right, well, let's wrap up by taking a look at Marriott International. Heard we had Cyber Monday. Apparently now we have Travel Tuesday. This one sliding about 1.4% today, just below that 10-day line, but setting up here in a base.
Setting up, it had come up on this. We talked about some stocks that have come up with low volume, and this was definitely wasn't much volume. There was a couple of days that were okay, but nothing really tremendous. Came right up to the highs, and it was sort of felt a little extended after that run. Looked like it needed a break, and it's getting a break now. They have to see, well, will it forge that handle? Will it then come up? Because just because you start to pull back doesn't mean you're going to bounce back. So this is why you wait a little bit. So this is nice to see. There's a few other travel names, some other hotels like Booking.com. There's Royal Caribbean, a few other names that have sort of come up toward highs, have handles or are working on handles, and maybe that'll work. And so that's nice to see, some of those names. But now you have to see if they actually do turn out. This one does have pretty good fundamentals. Going to have slower growth next year. That's not too much of a surprise, but I like this name. The fact that it's pulling back here, it's acting well, but it's too early to take action on it right now.
All right, Ed. Well, thanks so much for your insights today. And that's it for us. We'll be back with more market analysis tomorrow morning, starting with IBD Live. You can head on over to investors.com/IBD Live for all the details. And we'll also see you right back here tomorrow after the close.